Okay, D.L. Moody's notes from his Bible. Now we're up to Psalms. In Job, man had been taught to know himself. In Psalms, he is taught to know the Lord. Psalms 1, verse 1, walketh, standeth, sitteth. Verse 3, all the Lord's trees are evergreens. Psalm 3, trial, verses 1 and 2, trust, verses 3 and 7, triumph, verse 8. Psalms 4, how to win the ungodly to Christ. Verse 1, prayer for help. Verse 2, expostulation. Verse 3, warning. Verses 4 and 5, exhortation. Verses 6 through 8, testimony to the joy of religion. Verse 7, the believer's heart is God's storehouse. Psalms 5, verse 3, to be miserable, look within. To be distracted, look around. To be happy, look up. Psalms 8, verse 4, what are men that he should heed us? Cried the king of sacred song. Insects of an hour that hourly work their brother insect wrong. Psalm 9, verse 8, when Rowland Hill was asked what would become of the heathen, he said that if he did not meet some of them in heaven, he would see the reason why. Verse 17, the forgotten God, and verse 18, the unforgetting God. Psalm 11, verse 5, God tests the righteous but detests the wicked. Psalm 12, verse 2, double heart, fixed heart, Psalm 67, 7, and glad heart, Psalm 16, 9. All right, Psalm 14, 1, the fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. The Bible was not written for fools. A wise man knows there is a God, so he need not be told so in the Bible. Root, no God. Trunk, corrupt. Fruit, abominable works. Psalm 15:3, righteousness in word, act, and thought. Psalm 16:11, joy, quantity, fullness, dignity at thy right hand, duration forevermore. For short sorrow we shall have eternal joy, for a little hunger an eternal banquet, for a little sickness and affliction everlasting health and salvation, for a little bondage endless liberty, for disgrace glory, for evil surroundings the elect, for Satan's temptations the comfort of Christ, for the lion's den the presence of the lion of the tribe of Judah. Psalm 17:15. A, man's life, a sleep. B, death, man's awakening. C, the inheritance at the other side. And D, satisfaction. Psalm 19, verse 7. Fourfold action of God's word: converting, making wise, rejoicing, and enlightening. Psalm 20, verse 1, the defending name. Verse 5, the displayed name. Verse 7, the name depended upon. Psalm 22, yesterday. Psalm 23, today. Psalm 24, forever. Psalm 22, the good shepherd laying down his life for the sheep. Psalm 23, the good shepherd blessing them. Psalm 24, the good shepherd leading them to the promised land. Psalm 22, verse 1. Psalm 22, verse 1. This psalm begins with the atonement cry of Christ and ends with the cry that indicated the finish of the atoning work. Psalm 22:31. The original reads, they shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born. It is finished. Whatever. Psalm 23. Blessed is the day, said an old divine, when Psalm 23 was born. Nearly everyone can repeat Psalm 23 from memory, but not everyone from the heart. Perfect satisfaction, verse 1. Rest and quietness, verse 2. Restoration and guidance, verse 3. Consecration and joy, verse 5. With me, the Lord. Beneath me, green pastures. Beside me, still waters. Before me, a table. Around me, mine enemies. After me, goodness and mercy. Ahead of me, the house of the Lord. Happy life, verse 1. Happy death, verse 4. Happy eternity, verse 6. Psalm 23:3. He restoreth my soul. That's a dead un, said an army doctor, as he pointed to one of the bodies in the trenches before Sevastopol. Oh. No, said the body. I'm worth a good many dead men yet. And the dead un is now Lord Wolseley. Psalm 23:4. You may talk about Jesus, but as soon as you get into the valley, you will talk to him. A shadow will not hurt, but the shadow of a dog means a dog somewhere around. Psalm 23:5. Wherefore doth the Lord make your cup run over, but that others might taste the liquor. Psalm 23:6. The shepherd leads, and goodness and mercy bring up the rear. All God's children have two footmen, goodness and mercy, coming on behind them. The names of God illustrated by Psalm 23. Psalm 23:1, Jehovah Reh, the Lord my shepherd. Genesis 22:14, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. Judges 6:24, Jehovah Shalom, the Lord send peace. Exodus 15:26, Jehovah Rophi, the Lord that healeth. Jeremiah 23:6, Jehovah Tzidkenu, the Lord our righteousness. Ezekiel 48:35, Jehovah Shammah, the Lord is there. Isaiah 58:11, Jehovah Nakah, the Lord will guide thee. Isaiah 1:9 and Romans 9:29, Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. Exodus 17:15, Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. Jeremiah 51:56, Jehovah Jemulah, the Lord of recompense. Psalm 24:1. This verse is inscribed on the wall of the Royal Exchange, London. Psalm 24:3. Ascend, verse 3. Stand in, verse 3. Abide, Psalm 15:1. Psalm 25:11. David prayed, pardon mine iniquity. Pharaoh prayed, take away the frogs. The latter prayed to escape the punishment, the former the cause of it. Psalm 26. The heart, verse 2. Eyes, verse 3. Hands, verse 6. Voice, verse 7. Feet, verse 12. Psalm 27:5. A man must have both feet firmly planted on the rock before he can pull sinking men out of the floods. Psalm 28:1. Sometimes God is silent because of his love to us. Zephaniah 3:17. Sometimes to test our faith. Matthew 15:23. Sometimes because he has spoken, but we have not listened. Psalm 30, verse 5. In his favor is life, or his favor is for a lifetime. RV must be revised version margin. Lifetime contrasted with moment. See, for example, Isaiah 54, verses 7 and 8. Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2. 7 steps to blessedness of forgiven sin, etc. Conviction, verses 3 and 4. Confession, verse 5, forgiveness, verse 5, prayer, verse 6, protection, verse 7, guidance, verses 8 and 9, and joy, verses 10 and 11. In Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2, we see sin forgiven and subdued. Psalm 34, verse 8, men must taste of God's grace here, or they will never taste of his glory hereafter. Psalm 36, 1 through 4. 7 steps of wickedness. 1. No fear of God before his eyes. 2. Flattereth himself in his hateful iniquity. 3. Words of his mouth, iniquity and deceit. 4. Left off to be wise and do good. 5. Deviseth mischief upon his bed. 6. Setteth himself in a way not good. And 7. Abhorreth not evil. 7 steps of wickedness. Psalm 37:38. Strauss, when dying, said to his daughter, "This is the last of me. Now we separate. I sink into nothing." Psalm 40, verses 2 and 3. Pit, rock, song, celebration. Till you know the depth of the pit into which you have fallen, you will never properly praise the hand which raises you out of it. Psalm 40, verse 7. In the volume of the book it is written of me. Luther asks, what book and what person? There is only one book, the Scriptures, and only one person, Jesus Christ. Psalm 41, verse 4. Saul and Judas both said, I have sinned. David adds, against thee. Psalm 42:11. Hope is like the sun, which, as we travel toward it, casts the shadows behind us. Psalm 44, verse 1. When the songs of other nations sing of the heroism of their kings, the songs of Israel celebrate the doings of God. Psalm 45, verse 7. The cause, the nature, the measure of God's anointing. Psalm 45, verse 10. 4 calls. Hearken, consider, incline thine ear, forget. Psalm 49, verses 7 and 8. The body might be redeemed from man by money. Leviticus 25, 47 through 49. But God himself redeems the soul. Verse 15, and I guess that's Psalm 49. Psalm 51, verse 4. A saint says, what have I done? A sinner says, what must I suffer? One mourns for the active evil, the other for the passive evil. Psalm 52, verse 5. The wicked rooted out of the land of the living. Psalm 52, verse 8. The righteous rooted in the house of God. Psalm 55, verses 9 through 11. 7 terms declaring the wickedness of the city: violence and strife, mischief and sorrow and wickedness in the midst of it, deceit and guile in her streets. Psalm 55, verse 19. They have no changes, therefore they fear not God. When all goes well with a man, it is almost sure to be his ruin. Psalm 55, verse 22. Cast thy burden upon the Lord. Roll thy burden onto the Lord. We could not pick up any heavy ones and cast them. Psalm 56, 3. Fear should lead to faith. And verse 11, faith should put away fear. Psalm 58, verse 2. Outward acts are more scandalous among men, but inward wickedness is more dangerous before God. Psalm 61. Distance, the end of the earth, verse 2. Distress, overwhelmed, verse 2. Deliverance, the rock, verse 2. Defense, a shelter and a strong tower, verse 3. Dwelling place, thy tabernacle, verse 4. Duration, forever, verse 7. Destiny, abide before God, verses 4 and 7. Determination, I will sing praise unto thy name forever. So Psalm 61, distance, distress, deliverance, defense, dwelling place, duration, destiny, and determination. Psalm 62 only. 62 verse 10. I do not observe that grace always grows in the same ratio with a growing income. It is often said that such a man owns millions, but most frequently the millions own the man. Psalm 63 verse 1. My soul thirsteth for thee. 5. My soul shall be satisfied. Verse 8. My soul followeth hard after thee. Verse 7. 7 shadows. Wings for shelter. Psalm 63 7. Tabernacle from daily trial. Isaiah 4 6. Hand for service. Isaiah 49 2. Rock for refreshment. Isaiah 32 2. Cloud, the Lord's presence. Isaiah 4 verses 5 and 6. Almighty for power. Psalm 91 1. Beloved for rest. Cant, I guess that's Canticles 2, chapter 2 verse 3. Psalm 66 verse 5. Come and see. And verse 16. Come and hear. 66 verse 12. God brings through fire and water into a wealthy place. Satan casts into fire and water in order to destroy. Mark 9:22. Psalm 71 verse 3, continual abiding. Verse 14, continual hope. Psalm 72 verse 15, continual prayer and praise. Psalm 78 verse 11, a lively faith is blessed with a good memory. Forgetfulness is an early and sure sign of unbelief. Verse 22, no sin dishonors God like unbelief. Verse 24, manna to eat, not to analyze. Verse 27, fowls for food, food for fowls. Psalm 79 verse 2. Psalm 78 verse 31, fat in body, lean in soul. Psalm 106:15. And 78 verse 38, see note on Deuteronomy 28:28. Psalm 80 verse 5, thou feedest them with the bread of tears. He should have fed them also with the finest of the wheat. Psalm 81:16. Psalm 81 verse 3, nowadays we have made an atheist of the trumpet. Psalm 83 verse 3, the Lord's hidden ones, with Christ in God for salvation and life. 1 John 5:11 and 20 and Colossians 3:3. Under the shadow of his wing for shelter and safety. Psalm 17 verse 8. In the secret of his presence for communion with him. Psalm 31 verse 20. In his pavilion for testing and proving. Psalm 27 verse 5, 18 verse 11. In his quiver ready for use. Isaiah 49 verse 2. In the shadow of his hand for strength and service. Isaiah 49 verse 2. That's under Psalm 83:3. Psalm 84 verse 11. The soul of man depends on God to keep it in its true orbit, just as the earth depends on the sun. Sever man from God, and he starts away into darkness and disorder. Psalm 86 verse 6. In all thy prayers let thy heart be without the words, rather than thy words without the heart. In all thy prayers let thy heart be without the words, rather than thy words without the heart. Psalm 89, Mercy of the Lord. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. Verse 1. Mercy shall be built up forever. Verse 2. Mercy shall go before thy face. Verse 14. My mercy shall be with him. Verse 24. My mercy will I keep for him forevermore. Verse 28. Psalm 90, verse 12. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. St. Augustine says we will never do that unless we number every day as our last day. The last day is hidden, that every day may be heeded. I expect to pass through this world but once. If therefore there be any kindness I can show, any good I can do, any help I can give, let me do it now. Let me not defer it or neglect it, for I will not pass this way again. Psalm 91, the believer's security, verses 1 through 12. His victory, verse 13. His exaltation, verses 14 and 15. His eternal satisfaction, verse 16. Saints are safe. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare, and from the noisome pestilence. Verse 3. The evil is limited. Only with thine eyes shalt thou see the reward of the wicked. Verse 8. The Lord has reasons for preserving his own, because thou hast made the Lord my refuge, the Most High thy habitation. Verse 9. Psalm 91, verse 4. The feathers of God's wings are his tender mercies. See Psalm 145, verse 9. Psalm 91, verses 11 and 12. Satan's version, presumptuousness. Christ's version, trustfulness. 14 to 16. 7 things God will do for the believer. That's Psalm 91. I will deliver him, verses 14 and 15. I will set him on high, verse 14. I will answer his call, verse 15. I will be with him in trouble, verse 15. I will honor him, verse 15. I will satisfy him, verse 16. I will show him my salvation, verse 16. Psalm 92, 7. The wicked flourish to become fuel. Verse 14. The righteous flourish for fruit. Psalm 94, 13. Grace withereth without adversity. The devil is but God's master fencer, to teach us to handle our weapons. Psalm 96, verse 6. Some people say there is no need of beauty in God's sanctuary. You should use the money for the heathen, meaning themselves. Psalm 97, verse 2. God's government is often mysterious, yet always righteous. Psalm 101. Years ago, a prince of Saxe-Gotha, whenever he thought that one of his ministers or judges was not what he ought to be, used to always send him Psalm 101 to read. Psalm 103. The mercy of God. Its quality, tender, verse 4. Its measure, plenteous, verse 8. Its extent, as high as heaven, verse 11. Its duration, from everlasting to everlasting, verse 17. That's the mercy of God. Its quality, measure, extent, and duration in Psalm 103. And for verse 13, fatherly pity, filial fear. Psalm 105, verse 37. He brought them forth with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble person among their tribes, wealthy and healthy. Psalm 106. They believed and sang, verse 12. They believed not and murmured, verses 24 and 25. Psalm 106, verse 15. Fatten the body, lean in the soul. See Psalm 78, verse 31. Psalm 107. Note the contrast. No city to dwell in, verse 4. A city of habitation, verse 7. Hungry, thirsty, faint, verse 5. satisfied and filled, verse 9. Caused to wander, verse 7. Led forth, verse 40. Sit in darkness, verse 10. Brought out of darkness, verse 14. Bound in affliction and iron, verse 10. He brake their bands in sunder, verse 14. Draw near to death, verse 18. He saveth out of distresses, verse 19. Go down to the sea, verse 23. Bringeth to the desired haven, verse 30. Commandeth and raiseth stormy wind, verse 25. Maketh the storm a calm, verse 29. Psalm 107:19. Free grace is a harbor into which few ships run, except through stress of weather. Till the end of the creature is reached, men will not seek the Creator. Psalm 116. A Christian's experience. Conviction. I found trouble and sorrow, verse 3. Prayer. O Lord, I beseech thee, deliver my soul, verse 4. Gratitude. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits, verse 12. Assurance. O Lord, I am thy servant, verse 16. That's Psalm 116. The Christian's experience, conviction, prayer, gratitude, and assurance. Psalm 116, verse 16. Freedom under Christ. Thou hast loosed my bonds. Psalm 117, verse 2. The truth of the Lord endureth forever. I am the truth. Psalm 119, verse 18. Disciples' prayer. Hide not thy commandments from me. Promise. I will instruct thee and teach thee. Psalm 32, verse 8. Fulfillment. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the Scriptures. Luke 24:15. Actually, Luke 24, verse 45. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the Scriptures. All right, Psalm 119. I guess that's 81 or 51. I think it's 81. I have stuck unto thy testimonies. The best law for Bible study is perseverance, sticking to. Psalm 119, 59, and 60. The prodigal son's epitaph. Thinking for himself, thinking about himself, practical and prompt. Psalm 119, verse 71. It is a good wave that washes the mariner on to the rock. Psalm 119, verse 94. Profession, I am thine. Prayer, save me. Plea, for I have sought thy precepts. Thine, by purchase, surrender. Save me from sin, error, enemies, carelessness, temptation, self. So in Psalm 119:94, apparently we have profession, prayer, plea, by purchase, surrender, from sin, error, enemies, carelessness, temptation, self. Psalm 119:105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, to walk by, not to our tongues to talk about. Psalm 119:114. Thou art my hiding place, hidden in him, never from him. Psalm 119:136. Bendetti, a Franciscan monk, author of the Stabat Mater, one day was found weeping, and when asked the reason of his tears, replied, I weep because love goes about unloved. Psalm 119:166. Trust and obedience. Lord, I have hoped for thy salvation and done thy commandments. Psalm 121, verse 4. Let not any think that the devil is now dead, no, nor yet asleep. As he that keepeth Israel, so he that hateth Israel, neither slumbereth nor sleepeth. A poor woman in the east was robbed in the night. The Sultan asked, Why did you sleep? Because I thought you never slept. Alexander the Great told his soldiers, I wake that you may sleep. That's Psalm 121, verse 4. Verse 5, the Lord is thy keeper, day and night, in and out, forever. Psalm 122, verse 6, wherever thou canst send a thought, God can command a blessing. Psalm 125, 1 and 2, as the Lord encircles his people like a mountain rampart, he must be removed before they can be removed. Hence, stand fast in the Lord. Philippians chapter 4, verse 1. Psalm 131, 1. Present, 2. Past, 3. Future. Psalm 138, verse 6. Pride never prepares a man for paradise, but for perdition. Psalm 140, verse 5. The net is by the wayside, there is no danger in the way. Psalm 141, verses 7 and 8. Our bones are scattered at the grave's mouth, as when one cutteth and cleaveth wood upon the earth. But mine eyes are unto thee, O God the Lord. In thee is my trust, leave not my soul destitute. These texts are inscribed on the cross, which marks the site of the well into which the dead bodies were dropped every night during the siege of Cawnpore, 1857, preceding the massacre of Cawnpore, in which about 1,000 Europeans were murdered. Psalm 143, full of prayers, hear, give ear, answer, etc. Verse 5, remembrance, meditation, musing upon. The words of God's hands cause eager desire and thirst. Psalm 145, verse 14, lifting up. 15, looking up. 17, what the Lord is. Righteous in all his ways, and holy in all his works. 18. Where the Lord is, nigh unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. 19. What the Lord will do. He will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He also will hear their cry, and will save them. Psalm 150. The most complete directory of praise. Verse 1, whom shall we praise? Where? Verse 2, why? Verse 3 through 5, wherewith? Whatever is most helpful. And verse 6, who shall praise?